Hi, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer and also a channel and an energy worker and a medium. Do all kinds of different healing work, and including doing astrology readings, consultations, and also teaching about evolutionary or a kind of a karmic reincarnational based approach to astrology. Now, evolutionary astrology allows that people change over time throughout a given life. People evolve and change and learn to make different choices and learn from their experiences. But also, evolutionary astrologers assume that people change over the course of many lifetimes. So this video, number 7 in the COVID-19 series, and it's about stuff I'm watching happen in people. And it's about Pluto, and it's about where grief comes from. A little more specific than the last video about Pluto and how it can represent grief, kind of where grief comes from, and I'm going to employ Pluto throughout the story here. So as I said in the other video, everybody's Pluto placement contains the potential of intense feelings. Well, Pluto represents unconscious material that pushes up or is called up through resonance. Like, let's say that in my unconscious is the memory of being harmed by, you know, adults who wear yellow shirts. I don't know, random example. Well, no matter my age, as I'm going about my life and I keep seeing adults wearing yellow shirts, in my unconscious, that note might pinged over and over again and something comes up. So from the unconscious is kind of where stuff comes from. In your unconscious are the records of all of your soul's various lives. And it isn't 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 100. It's millions of lifetimes. Nobody can give you a number that's real because we don't know. We're all in this evolutionary thing where, all of us are having many, many lifetimes to learn what we're here to do. One of the things that's different about my approach to evolutionary astrology and Pluto and what soul is includes that the soul is outside time watching you live in time within time-space dimension, right, on Earth. And it's watching all of its lifetimes simultaneously. So these emotional memories for many lifetimes are stored in your unconscious. And when they're activated, it's as if you are having an experience, but it's a past life or an other life self that's having that experience. So the kinds of memories that are in your unconscious are multitudinous. There are many, many different kinds of experiences. You should assume that you have been through a great deal of what's possible for humans to experience over the course of many lifetimes. So again, we're not talking about 8 or 10 or 100 lives. Your soul has you becoming human. It's being born as you to experience what it's like to be human, and all kinds of different themes are required for this education over millions or billions of lifetimes, whatever it is. So as I teach evolutionary astrology, I focus on a birth chart as a map of themes. This is all in Evolutionary Astrology Basics I if you want to get the deal. Also, the Soul's Journey trilogy of books start with, of course, with number 1. Number 1 lays out all the information on the model of soul. Volume 2 is the transcription of a workshop where I brought this for 6 or 7 participants, their own karmic stories. And book 3, a case study. The second one's emotional archaeology. Third one is a case study, and that is an analysis of 19 of my own other lifetimes. We typically say past lives, but I say my soul's other lifetimes because those memories feel real to me now when they surface. 19 of my own, so it's a case study on my own chart. So you have all experienced triumph and achievement and receiving awards. You have all experienced having a family or not having a family. You have all experienced, peaceful death and tragic death. We've all experienced everything. What your chart says is what themes need to be dealt with and what people and situations you'll attract to you to stir up those themes that you need to process. So what I wanted to get to with this idea of like, where does grief come from? Over the course of many lifetimes, you're accumulating all this experience. It gets stored in your unconscious, which is one of your etheric, attached to your emotional body. So it, travels between lifetimes. It's in common with many lifetimes. And any kind of experience, this is what I covered in the last video, where you experience loss or death or the needing to surrender something, but you won't, so it's yanked away from you, loss, all these things, guilt, things that inspire guilt and shame, they can all require grieving. What I want you to understand is that, and I don't say this to inspire any fear. I want you to understand where this fear comes from, where the pain can come from. Think about over the course of millions or more lifetimes. You are aware of things that are going on with people and humans. You're aware of illness and sickness and disease and disaster. You're aware of people who are running things being corrupt. You're aware of when well-meaning people lose their minds together and become a mindless mob. You're aware of when a nation comes together and celebrates something, and you're aware of when it falls apart and attacks itself. You're aware of all those things. And so in certain layers of your unconscious are going to be generalized memories of general collective events. And even if they didn't in some other lifetime affect you directly, you might remember the reality that a tragedy is widespread. Okay, now, but of all kinds of different things. I don't want to make a list of terrible things, but war, genocide, illness, weather events, tragedies, okay, all kinds of different things. So you now are living in a world where there's a pandemic. And different kinds of shadow fears or parts of you that you don't want to deal with may get activated. I've been focusing in this video series when I talk about emotions on grief, but again, it covers more ground than just someone has passed away and I must grieve that person. It covers more ground than that. So, but you have a memory of a bunch of generalized things. And so what might come up for you could be different than other people. I talked to somebody today just in a class thing who basically pointed out a conspiracy theory. Well, that's one kind of thing. Like you can't trust the people, you can't trust the government, whatever, like whatever. Another thing is, fears that we're doomed, fears that we're going to run out of food. Said that to me a few weeks ago. I was just saying like, yeah, stuff's coming up. And the person was like, yeah, I'm kind of dealing with other life memories of starvation. So that kind of thing might be happening for some. The actual loss of your own loved ones, right? Or the memories of your own death, pandemic, or some disease or something. So there are lots of different places that it comes from, but your unconscious is quite an active place and an active realm, and many kinds of life scenarios can activate memories from many lifetimes to come up. What I want to get at is, I'm inviting you again to be willing to feel your feelings, because there's nothing wrong with what you're feeling. Let's say that you're having a conspiracy theory thing. Let's say that you're focused on other life starvation, or you're afraid you're going to die, or your loved one who supports you is going to die. Maybe something very specific like that is coming for you. And there's nothing wrong with you that you're feeling that. And being more, we might feel disconnected, but being more socially or physically isolated, you are essentially, this is what I was telling my students this morning, or my subscribers in a class on Saturn and Aquarius, you're basically sequestered at home with your crummy beliefs and all the parts of you that insist that this disempowering thing is true. That's basically what's going on for all of us. So if you can gain some objectivity, that's helpful, right? Saturn and Aquarius, one idea. Also, if you understand yourself as a collection of other life memories that may not have been tapped yet, when fears come up, you can remember, right, this isn't who I am, but this is something that I'm experiencing that I need to deal with. So the grief can be about anything. It can come from any of millions of lifetimes, and everyone has a Pluto placement. So I just made a little list here that's very obvious, but I just want to spell this out. From other lifetimes, personal experiences, family experiences, relationship experiences, and then social, group, tribal, clan, national, whatever, religious group, whatever, like all those kinds of levels. And then, of course, absorbing stuff from the collective that might even come far away. Like you might not have experienced something that you are now feeling the fear about. So it's incredibly important to be willing to feel your feelings. You have the right to feel whatever it is that you feel. And even if it seems out of proportion to what's going on now, I want you to consider, like I as an evolutionary astrologer who looks at multiple lifetimes and frames your current life in terms of the broad life journey, like this is a chapter in a longer journey. I think it's imperative, I know it's imperative that you don't judge what you feel, because you may have an emotion now unearthed from the unconscious that feels real to you. This is where phobias come from and other things. So honoring what you feel, don't shame it and don't judge it. Here's the path of the hermit, which I talked about in some earlier Covid-19 series videos too. To be with yourself, including with your crummy beliefs and the parts of you that are disempowered or afraid or don't feel safe. The affirmations that I might use and encourage people to play with is, in this moment, everything's fine and I'm safe. Or in this moment, everything's fine and it's safe for me to be in my body and relax. So right now it is. Parts of me that have anxiety or fears, I can essentially coax them out of those positions, of those ideas and stances and the holding that comes with it, the energetic, physical, emotional holding. The more I do that affirmation, yeah, I'm looking around. There's no disaster coming across the countryside. There's no marauding horde. There's no tornado. There's no giant fireball. There's no dragon coming to destroy my house. There's no dinosaur running toward my house, Um, so you can look out your window and just observe, you know what? Everything's okay right now. Eventually you get those parts of you caught up to being present. But you have to deal with those fears. You can't run away from them. You can't eat them away. You can't distract yourself with, Netflix or something away. You can distract yourself all you want, but eventually you'll get really bored with it and you'll have to be with yourself, including these disempowering, crummy beliefs. So one of the hallmarks of Plutonian energy is that people don't want to look at it usually. It's, yes, the energy of authenticity and a deep sense of integrity and facing the shadows, and that sounds great, but it means you have to deal with parts of you you really judge and fear. So everyone has a Pluto. So everyone has the potential to have guilt or shame or despair or hopelessness and actual grief, literal grief, right? Everybody has that potential. I'm going to post links to some resources in the description of this video, but I just more about how I teach Pluto and evolutionary astrology stuff. I just want you to be aware that you're sequestered with your emotions. And from an evolutionary perspective, you are a human who's growing over time. This is really important. Oh, one more note about Lilith. I don't think this is going to be would be an entire video, but I was listening to a podcast called On the Media. I'll see if I can find the link to the segment. And it's a, I don't know, NYC Studios thing, and I've listened to it for years, and they watch the media and listen to the news and then do analysis. And I find it very helpful for different perspectives on how things are being covered and why. And they're talking, the lady was talking with an author who was talking about the war metaphor, being at war. Actually, it is relevant to the Pluto thing too, and the Lilith, actually, Lilith. Because if you're fighting, if you're at war, you see this invasion of this pathogen, etc., this virus. And she was saying she prefers educational metaphors. my body, my immune system is being schooled by the coronavirus. I haven't learned about that before. My body hasn't learned from that before. And I found that really interesting. And there, the idea of fighting is in common with Lilith and Pluto. When we find a shadow or part of us we don't know what to do with, we think it's the enemy. And she was saying that's actually, what did she say? Naive, as in your immune system not having encountered something before doesn't know it, so hasn't had an opportunity to respond. And so I like that idea, and that's a Lilith idea of like, you know, instead of vilifying nature, because that's what this is. This is an organism. A virus is a part of life on Earth. You can think it's separate, you can think it's different, you can vilify it, but it's part of life on Earth. It's part of the expression of life. So to learn to work with nature, we have this opportunity to let ourselves be schooled by it, not only our immune systems, but also in how we set up our day-to-day lives and interact with each other, to learn new ways of being around each other. Anyway, so I thought that was really interesting, and I love that idea. Um, anyway, I'll post the link to the segment because it's interesting, I think. Anyway, thanks for playing. I'm at tdjacobs.com and also healingsuicide.com. Take care of yourself and don't judge your feelings. Witness them, give them voice, understand they're not who you are. Okay, take care.